Individuals can be broken by the terror of a bombing attack. But it is more difficult to unhinge the spirit of a nation. The Germans failed in 1940 to blitz the British into submission. The Allies failed in their turn to beat the Germans into surrender by strategic bombing. In Vietnam, the US Air Force, confining its attack to economic targets, found that it could crater rice paddy and lay waste forest by the acre, but not subdue the will of the population to carry on the fight. The whole of North Vietnam became an anti-aircraft position, from which many American aircraft failed to return. And when their bombs did strike home on targets of importance, the ant-like energy of the Vietnamese peasant was engaged to repair the damage. High explosives scattered earth and stone to the winds. Human muscle returned it to its place. In the contest between high technology and stubborn resistance, stubbornness won the race. In a country where transport was relatively unsophisticated, good interdiction targets were hard to come by. Nowhere was the US Air Force more frustrated than in its efforts to cut the Tan Hoa Bridge, 70 miles south of Hanoi. It was an important transport link, and between March 1964 and October 1968, no less than 700 sorties were flown against it, but the bridge always remained open. Finally, 4 years later, and then only by the use of laser-guided 2,000-pound bombs, was it damaged and subsequently closed. Along the Ho Chi Minh Trail, North Vietnam's main supply route to the south, the Americans bombed a wasteland 20 miles wide and hundreds of miles long. But the supplies always found a way through the crater zone. It was a telling illustration of the indecisive effect of air power alone. The Vietnam War had seemed, nevertheless, to indicate that at least one type of aircraft, the helicopter, would have a central role in future warfare. The United States Army has built a whole new formation around the helicopter and on the concept of air mobility. This is the 101st Airborne, which is part of the Air Assault Division. It began as a parachute unit in World War II and fought from helicopters in Vietnam. Today, the new division is bigger, stronger, and even more flexible in use. Unlike parachutists, they're not tied to runways and ripcords. They can start almost anywhere and go almost anywhere. Their mobility derives from the advanced design of the modern military helicopter in all its many forms: observation, transport, heavy lift, gunship. But it is the skill of the pilot that maximizes the helicopter's qualities. Skill in contour flying, formation keeping, accurate touchdown, and rapid departure. The Air Assault Division can also bring its own artillery with it to support the infantry in contact with the enemy. Its guns are not the pipsqueak 75s of Arnhem days, but full-scale howitzers and cannon with a range and weight of shell equivalent to those in an armored division, and an unequaled ability to change position at speed. Guns and infantry fly together, and most important of all, the infantry land concentrate. Gone is the fatal dispersion of parachuting days. Air assault units hit the ground in compact, formed bodies, ready to take the fight to the enemy from the moment of touchdown. The artillery arrives on their heels, ready to lend support, and overhead hover the observation helicopters, alert to spot enemy reaction. Against tanks, they can call in A-10s, the Air Force's ferocious tank busters.
Enemy tank! 1,500 meters to your front! Acquire, identify!
The air assault troopers have anti-tank weapons of their own.
Fire when ready.
Weapons good enough to make a kill. And so the final assault goes in, supported by firepower undreamt of by the airborne soldiers of World War II. When and if the position has been taken, the attendant troop carriers return to re-embark their soldiers. Air assault is the latest, though not perhaps the ultimate, application of air power to land warfare. Strategic visionaries already foresee what they call the air-land battle, in which command will be exercised and the decisive strokes inflicted from airborne platforms or ballistic vehicles. The trend of technology brings such a vision close to realization. In the comparatively few years since the aircraft made its first faltering contribution to the soldier's business, perhaps it has wrought the greatest military revolution since the dawn of conflict.
This history of men at war continues tomorrow at 2 o'clock. And tomorrow night, America's military and nuclear dominance in the Pacific is highlighted. And while the certainties of the Cold War melt away in Europe, the Pacific still observes superpower rivalry. Don't miss Power in the Pacific, tomorrow night at 9:30 on ABC.